Has Jesus forgotten to return to us? Well, the answer to this question is no, for two reasons, which we'll go into in this video. The first reason is the fact that, the Bible tells us that God Almighty cannot forget about us, his people, forget to fulfill the promises that he made to us. If you read Acts chapter 3, verses 19 to 21, you see the promises being the restitution of all things, the idea of removing evil from the world. If you read Isaiah chapter 49, verse 15, God had said through Isaiah the prophet, "Can a woman forget her sucking child, that she should not have compassion on the son of her womb? Yea, they may forget, yet I will not forget thee." If you also read 1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 29, and Numbers chapter 23, verse 19, you see that God Almighty, when he makes a promise, when he makes a statement, when he makes a decree, he will always stick by it and fulfill it. So we know that Jesus Christ hasn't forgotten. But then the question is, why then has it taken so long? Why is it that 2,000 years have passed and we're still thinking, that Jesus Christ hasn't returned, and that somewhere in the future he will return? Well, in Luke chapter 19, verses 11 and 12, Jesus Christ had actually used a parable to teach us the fact that his return would not be immediate. That is, after he ascended to heaven in Acts chapter 1, like within the lifetime of the people who were there, he would come back. He said that it's like someone who went into a far country to receive a kingdom and to return. The far there doesn't mean distance, but it's referring to the time. And it's not that God specifically wanted it to be a long time. If you read 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 8, you see that a day to God is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day. So time doesn't really mean anything, since he lives from everlasting to everlasting, according to Psalm chapter 90, verse 2, and chapter 93, verse 2. So as a result, 1,000 years, 2,000 years doesn't really mean anything to him. It's not that long. But the other thing that I want to get into in this video is that, it's often said that Jesus Christ will soon return. I've had this debate with people from time to time. Many people believe that the signs that Jesus Christ had mentioned in Matthew chapter 24, like nation rising against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and all the other things, are a precursor to his coming. That is, when you see those signs, it means that Jesus Christ will soon come. The thing is, when the disciples had asked Jesus in Matthew chapter 24, verse 3, what will be the sign of that coming and of the end of the world, the reason why they were asking for those signs is because they knew that Jesus Christ's coming would not be a literal return. If you read 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 16, you see Paul the apostle saying, "Wherefore henceforth know we no man after the flesh. Yea, though we have known Christ after the flesh, yet now henceforth know we him no more." So it's like, yes, Jesus Christ has been a physical human being before, but that kind of physical coming to the earth is never going to happen again. His return would now be invisible, which is why in Revelation chapter 1, verse 7, it says that Jesus would come with clouds. Just as, if a plane is flying on top of the clouds, you can't see the plane, but you can hear the sounds. Similarly, Jesus Christ would return invisibly, but then the signs would help us to indicate that he has returned. If you read Exodus chapter 3, verse 8, you see God saying, "I have come down," not physically, of course, but I have turned my attention to my people, the Israelites, and I'm going to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians and give them the land of the Hittites and Hivites and Girgashites and so on. But you can see that at the time God was saying this, nothing had really happened, but he had already returned. And then if you read Exodus chapter 4, verse 9 and chapter 7, verse 3, you see God saying that now that I have returned, there are going to be signs that will indicate my return for my people. And then we began to see the 10 plagues happen. So the signs of the times that would signal Christ's return are the exact same thing. And this makes sense because it is Christ's coming that would trigger the signs in the first place. Jesus Christ said in Matthew chapter 24, verses 7 and 8, that nation would rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. And the question is, why would nation rising against nation and kingdom rising against kingdom be a sign of Jesus Christ, the Prince of Peace, according to Isaiah chapter 9 verse 6, returning? What connection do they have? Well, if you read Matthew chapter 4, verses 8 and 9, you see that the person who used to own this world, that is the person who used to govern and control this world, was actually not God, but Satan the devil, which is why in that account, Satan was offering the kingdoms of the world to Jesus, saying that all these things will I give you if you worship me. And if you read 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 4, Paul referred to Satan as the god of this world for that exact reason. So when Jesus Christ returned, then he defeated Satan, the devil. And that's what led to the two world wars, which, as I've said in other videos, are a fulfillment of Matthew chapter 24, verses 7 and 8. Because unlike other wars that have happened in the past, those two wars were global. That is, Christ's return was to take over the whole world from Satan. So as a result, there was now global conflict as that spiritual struggle was happening. If you read Revelation chapter 12, verses 7 to 12. And the other important factor is that the world changed significantly, right? Democracy began to spring up. People began to fight for freedom more rapidly. They began to gain success. Now, people generally live freer lives in many parts of the world, and we're currently moving more and more and more in that direction. You hear that all the time in the news. So the point I want to make is that Jesus Christ indeed hasn't forgotten about us, because he is actually ruling as king in the midst of his enemies. If you read Psalm 110 verse 2, which by the way is also important because, some people think that it's when evil has been eradicated from the world that Jesus Christ would then return. No, it is the return of Christ that leads to, the removal of evil. And that's why in Matthew chapter 13, verses 41 and 42, Jesus Christ said that the Son shall send forth his angels, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and them which do iniquity, and shall cast them into a furnace of fire, and there shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Suggesting, of course, that there would be evil during Christ's time, but then he would, get rid of it. So that answers the question for, has Jesus forgotten to return to us? The answer to that question is no, because of so many things we've said in this video. But the summary is that Jesus, of course, cannot forget. God cannot forget about the promises he's made to us. And secondly, Jesus Christ has actually returned to us, showing that he has not forgotten. But if you enjoyed this video and learned something new today, then I would appreciate if you click the like button and also the subscribe button. And if you want to be notified when I come back with another video just like this, then you can click the notification bell. Have a good day, and God bless you.